They're not anyone's, they're just in the universe. But it's so isn't it amazing though that this like happens and I think I'm here 70 years and I have no clue really. I'm not even here. I'm in my mind dreaming of Sharon, watching her play around.
That's just crazy. And but it's so absolutely true. This is
Yep.
where we are. This is,
Yeah.
it's uh no big surprise, nothing terrible happening. We're just lost in a lost world. We're having fun here. Uh,
Well, yeah, from this and listen, Lynn, I met you in the dream, in the story a long time ago, and we're still in this. But you see, there's no us. So anything you do is being orchestrated by the invisible spirit conductor. I
that's
think
right.
it's just
That's right.
doing it all. And it is a symphony. God, I love to walk. I walked at 6 o'clock this morning before it got hot with the dog, and I have a beautiful park here, and it was just so magical. It's so amazing when you get into your right mind, and kind of that's your home now. Like I go in and out still, but the right mind is more like, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, because I don't want. It's crazy, but you don't even know it when you're in it. You think that you're trying to be sane. How can you be sane in an ego? It's always like changing its mind.
Exactly, exactly. And it's so frantic. I love
Hmm.
Jesus uses the word frantic. And I think that's so true. It is frantic. And
Yeah.
that's what we're doing is just
Symphony, brilliant word symphony. Yeah, I love you, Robert. You're so wonderful to come, and we're so glad that you came because this is a group that will appreciate you and love you because everybody in this group does love each other. So,
yeah, and we don't compete with each other. I think that's the problem with a lot of groups is there's a competition going on.
well, yeah, there was one in another group that I was in, and yes, and it's usually because your little child comes out, and it's like, oh, I'm failing again.
Right, and you want to be accepted and loved.
That's it. Unconsciously,
Seen.
you want it more than anything else to be accepted. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so here we're just accepting because we know who you are. And knowing who you are, that's the most important thing. Because
Mm.
you can't, you know, if you knew, when you're slapping yourself in the face and blaming somebody else for it, that you were you were the one who was doing it,
Right, and
you
that's the
know.
hardest thing because, like, if you see someone slap you, right, and you'll say, "I can't believe he just hit me," but he didn't. You put that person out there and try explaining that to an ego. You can't. It has to come full force from spirit.
Yeah. It's really funny. I had, speaking of slapping, I had a class that I was teaching, and there was another teacher in there who, obviously wanted to do things in a different kind of way. And I was telling people, hey, you think you think you're not gonna feel like this. You're not gonna be angry. You're not gonna be a victim. I said, slap yourself in the face right now. Just slap yourself in the face right now, and you are going to get so pissed off and look
Mm.
around for who did this to you.
Did you ever hear Ken Wapnick tell the story that he had, like, stubbed his toe or something? He was walking around and there was no one home, and
uh,
his mind said, "Where Gloria put that thing there."
I do
And
it all the time.
everybody started laughing, and this is only, like, a couple years before he died, so I'm sure he found it funny too, because our little mind just doesn't it still, like, wants to be real.
Right. And we want to be a victim, and we want to think that
Yeah.
it's not us that's doing it, but it's only me. I'm doing it to myself.
Yep. Well,
That's
that's a hard one though, and, I can say that now, but the constant saying when I was really into victim, it infuriates the ego when I would read it. It
slap yourself
infuriates.
in the face and you see
Yeah.
exactly how it feels. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So do you want to read chapter 25?
Yeah, that's our teaching now, so let me just see where we are. Okay. He's really one of my favorite people, like Bill, to read about him, that's just incredibly makes me so happy.
like getting to know him, which I
Me
didn't. I
too.
thought you
Me
knew
too.
him.
Like I was like I read that book, Journey Without Distance like 3 times because I was so in love with these people. Like it was like, oh my God, I loved reading about Helen. Now Helen was scared, and that's a normal ego response, so you could see that. But boy, did she help us. As a daily ACIM transcription process stretched into months, then years, Bill and Helen had mused about whether it would ever end. And if so, how they might know that. At first, they thought it would be only a few pages long, but as it continued to unfold, it became clear it was a much longer work. Now, 4 decades later, we can offhandedly, wait a minute, offhandedly, now we can offhandedly, I don't see the word, okay, oh yes, the
We
course
can
consists
say
of,
we can say offhandedly. We can say it.
right, we can say it, that's
We
it.
say offhandedly. Oh yes. Okay, go on.
Oh, yes, the course consists of a text, a workbook, and teacher's manual, but they had no way of knowing that early on. When they inquired, the inner voice told them they would recognize the end of dictation of the text. When they heard the word amen, amen. I liked when Brooklyn says, amen, like she really does it the way my family would do it, because she has that Jewish accent, like I do, I guess. I don't know. And now we say amen, and first sentence in the final paragraphs of the text. And as for Bill now, we say amen. Those who knew and loved him during the California chapter of his life watched his steady transformation unfold, sometimes barely perceptible, sometimes in sudden leaps, occasionally with some discomfort, but always modestly. As his initial small willingness to practice forgiveness grew into a serious commitment, once he made that commitment to practice complete forgiveness, he never really wavered. Wow, that's really good. Everyone noticed the steady dissolution of his ego. That process markedly accelerating after he moved to La Jolla. His prayers for help indeed were granted. And one day, Bill simply woke up, walked out of prison, and declared his own independence on January 4th, 1988. No one who knew him believed the date was a coincidence. In retrospect, everyone laughed about it, affirming the perfection of his last few days. Bill, who so loved to play with words, was playing with dates. In the end, all grievances were healed and Flexi Bill was free. Wow. He just would be my friend. He already is, but I just love him. For what would it be his final visit to Tiburon, Bill planned to arrive on July 3rd to join the holiday festivities at the Whitson household. Just before leaving, he and Catherine Prescott discussed getting together, as was the custom on his occasional trips up from La Jolla. With uncharacteristic fervor, Bill insisted that they have dinner with Jerry the night of the third. Does that go? Jerry the night of the third?
They had dinner with Jerry the night of the 3rd.
Oh, okay. Yeah. See, it's hard I'm losing the continuity. I don't know why. It's in my brain, of course. My projector's not working correctly. Since she planned to leave for Hawaii the next day, she responded, "No, it's not worth it, Bill. I'll see you back when I get back." In retrospect, she found it amazing that he kept saying, "No, no, I have to see you before you go." She agreed to dinner somewhat reluctantly. because she had an early morning departure and many last-minute chores still to do. Jerry picked Bill up at the San Francisco airport the morning of July 3rd. And on the drive to, God bless, to Tiburon, they found themselves ensnarled in a huge traffic jam. The drive usually takes about an hour, but on the day it was closer to 3.5 hours, which Jerry later recalled as a blessing, a real blessing. Spending that much time with Bill was such a treat for him. Bill was in a very playful, joyful mood, very light. I never saw him so exuberant. His humor was amazing. He was walking very lightly and kind of playing. Wow. You know how he liked to play on words? I was really happy to see him later, not taking life seriously. Yeah, not taking life seriously. I absolutely remember him telling him how wonderful it was to see his joy and what a great decision it had been to go down there to La Jolla. Uh, Judy Whitson recounts, as if it were yesterday, the sequence of events that unfolded in Bill's astonishing final days. The whole story of his last 2 days was all the one piece. I was expecting for the weekend, as it was the 4th of July, and I had invited 36 people to greet him and have an outdoor meal on the deck with fireworks and all. Jerry picked up at the airport to bring him to our house for lunch, which I had ready about 12:30, expecting them by 1 p.m. Well, it passed, then 1:32, they weren't there, and I was getting a little miffed. This was before cell phones. Finally, around 3, they walked in, and what I saw was so unexpected. Jerry looked kind of sheepish, and Bill was smiling as if he were on stage. He was lifting up his arms in the air with grace. I never thought of Bill as a graceful person, and doing a little jig as he walked in the door. Then he kissed me and said, "You won't believe what happened. You won't believe what happened." I said, "What? What?" Still a little miffed, he said, "We had a terrible, terrible traffic." And Jerry didn't get angry once. I looked at Jerry and he sort of shrugged, smiling his little embarrassed smile, because that remark meant that he usually did get annoyed in traffic. But Bill felt something had happened and was commenting on the difference. We had such a wonderful talk, a really wonderful connection. He was very much aware that it was different with Jerry. And oh my goodness, he was dancing, literally dancing into our house. Okay, you can read now, Lynn. Or whoever else wants, Lindy, whoever.
Okay, just a second here, and I will pick up. So, all right. Uh, the course states unequivocally that as we change our thoughts, their outer counterparts, the details of our daily lives, including others' behavior, will change automatically. All right, so we've heard this before and we hear it in the course all the time. And this is an example of how that happens, right? Hang on just a second. Sorry about that. I'm having a little allergies here this morning. I'm not sure
I am too. Yeah.
what it is, but I'm seasoned. So, and okay. So, all right. Um, okay. Uh, the
Lindy to
oh,
read.
no,
I'm
I'm
sorry.
good.
Okay.
Uh, okay. So the course states unequivocally that we change our thoughts, their outer counterparts, the details of our daily lives, including others' behavior, will change automatically. Since Bill had clearly made a major shift in his thinking, he naturally saw things differently, experiencing everyone around him, in this case Jerry, as more loving, open, and intensely satisfying. Of course, such healing is mutual, the ultimate win-win situation. Jerry and Bill made their arrangements for the evening, and Jerry left. Judy continued. Bill was still tripping the light fantastic all around the living room, though there was no music playing. I asked what he was doing, and he answered, "Oh, I feel so flexible. I feel so flexible." I asked if he would like to sit down and have lunch, and he replied, "All right." But he was blithe. That's the only word I can think of. It was a very different Bill. He was just happy, but the happiness was not good mood happiness, rather a joy that was radiating through the body. His spirit was transcendent. Watching him as I served him lunch, there was the watcher part and the doer part of me. The watcher thought something strange was going on here. I wondered if he was on something. Of course, we're going to think it's drugs, thinking some medication had him stoned. I asked him what he was taking these days, and he laughed. No, no, I'm just feeling so good, so free, so complete. When I asked if he meant relationship complete, he answered that he was. So, playing the role of the sister, I started quizzing about them, beginning with Ken. Bill said he had spoken with Ken a few months before, telling him that anything he had ever held against him was his own misperception and how terribly sorry he was. He was honest with Ken about the times he had resented him, his judgments about him, and his resistance to being friends with him. He said the grievances were all gone, absolutely gone in his mind, and he didn't see him that way anymore and asked for forgiveness. The conversation with Ken took place, to be precise, in February on Ken's birthday. And Ken's birthday is February 22nd. Jack Luckett confirmed the circumstances from his own perspective, as he had heard Bill's side of the phone call. Bill normally got up earlier than I did, and he would have clippings from the newspaper set out on the coffee table for us to talk about when I joined him. On this day, as every morning, Lael was out doing her yoga, and Bill and I were drinking coffee, chatting about these articles. Unexpectedly, he got up in the middle of a discussion, dialed the phone, and spoke to Ken, among other things, wishing him a happy birthday. When he hung up, I told him I was listening to the tone of his voice, and that it was so clear to me that he had totally forgiven Ken. He answered that it was indeed true. God, I wish people would forgive Ken. It just that is the one thing that it just hurts my heart so much is how much hatred there is for Ken in the world, and of all the things that he did for us, how people
Yeah,
could.
but I don't think that they're just talking about themselves because
Oh, I know,
there's really nothing to hate about Ken.
I
He was
know.
a treasure.
He's a freaking amazing character that
Well, you're going to be well known. You're going to be the ego's going to end up turning on you. You know, that's just the way it
yeah,
works.
and that's it. So Ken corroborated the story. He said the conversation was a short one, but Bill was very warm and sincere, and that it felt genuine to him. He didn't remember the exact words, but Bill did apologize, saying something like he had no right to judge or know what Ken should be doing or might do, that anything he did was fine with him. A month or so after the call, Ken spoke with him again, asking Bill to attend the grand opening in August of the Retreat Center in Roscoe, New York, which he and his wife Gloria were starting. Bill agreed to join them there. So Judy continued questioning Bill about his relationships. Then I went through a list of about 8 people where I knew the relationships had been sticky ones, and with every one of them, he was beaming. I got to the one I thought might be extremely embarrassing, asking about Joe, his first girlfriend. He knew what I meant and said they had gone away together 2 weekends before to her condo out in the desert near San Diego. When I inquired, he said he had finally told her, and it was clear, although they discussed his visiting her in New Zealand once he got settled. Bill and I never actually discussed the fact that he was homosexual. It wasn't as if I didn't know, we just didn't discuss it. And I see Bob has his hand up. Bob, yes, would you have something you'd like to share?
Yeah, I'd like to go back to, in thought, I'd like to go back to where we were talking about Jerry's happiness. Um, I had something happen to me just recently, and it was really amazing. Um, I've been wanting to write an essay on what it means when the course says God's will for you is perfect happiness, and I was never allowed to do that. I never got the inspiration for it until the other day. Most of my life, I have been a very angry person. It was an overriding emotion most of my life. And the other day, I was sitting in my chair and I told my wife, you know, I'm actually feeling happy. And I tried to share with her that, you know, it was so unusual because there's so much crap going on in our lives right now on so many levels. And yet, in that moment, and I have to call it a holy instant, I felt that happiness. And I realized that this was something that was brand new. It was very different and it was wonderful. And I realized, okay, this is the release. This is what I needed to be able to experience and understand on a visceral level what God's will for happiness means for me.
Thank you, Bob. And yes, that is it. It's a visceral thing. It's a feeling that we have. And that's why we talk about the feelings that, that's the first indicator that you have that there's something happening is through this feeling. The feeling is more of a psychic connection uh, to your true being. So the feelings come to us from the Holy Spirit. That's why we don't discard the feelings or dismiss the feelings. We actually just look at the feelings and ask, what is this? Where did you come from? And what are you for? Cotton Eye Joe. Oh my God. I bet nobody here knows Cotton Eye Joe. Maybe you do. Maybe you don't. But it's a thing if we who watch a lot of hockey, it's a song that's played in between the intermissions. Okay, so anyway, he went through all these, and she went through all these with him. Then I asked him about Helen because that was the big one. Funny you should ask that, he answered, because the other night I had a dream where I saw her as the priestess, representing an important aspect of Helen's non-physical function, one she had many dreams and visions about. She was holding out her hands to me and glowing with such a sweet smile on her face. It seemed that, indeed, there was nothing left undone. So I gave him a hug, saying, well, you are free. You've done your homework. He smiled just a big grin and said, yes, I have. Yeah, so he was done. He had forgiven the world. Uh, so let's see, where are we at here? Okay. As I planned, Gary came for Bill later that evening. Then they collected Catherine to join them for dinner. Bill was so happy and excited, she recounted. He played out this romantic thing with me, even though there was nothing to it. I was his, quote, girlfriend, but not really. Nothing ever happened. But I think he liked to play this knight in shining armor and be kind of chivalrous. She said he was ebullient and joyful as he danced around. His dancing apparently hadn't stopped when she left the Whitson's home. The trio ordered fish, and when it arrived, already filleted, Catherine said, I looked down at it and I had a feeling, a psychic hit right then that something was going to happen because it looked like a dead body. Often throughout the meal, Bill would hug her, saying, well, there must have been some reason I'm supposed to see you tonight, right? It had to be tonight. Wow, he knew. It's like he knew. Wow. And maybe not everything, but he knew. Meanwhile, Catherine noted, I had this fish and a feeling in the pit of my stomach, but never did I think it was related to Bill. Never. His energy, his frequency was vibrating at such an incredibly high rate. He swept me into it, like going up in a hot air balloon. He was saying all the way home from the restaurant, there is no baggage. I'm cleaned out, in and out. I'm complete with everyone. On arriving home, while Jerry waited in the car, he kissed me, danced around in the street, and the last thing he said was, see, there had to be a reason that I saw you tonight. Tonight's the night. But I had this clutching feeling, and the tape playing in my stereo when I walked in was called Walk and Talk Like Angels. I don't know that song, but it sounds like it might be interesting. Let me check it out here. Walk and Talk Like Angels. Okay, it's just an image. Sharon talked about it. All right, so he was knowing, and I have to think about Lenny Rose, and the day before Lenny Rose died, he usually had a program on here every week, and he called in, and I talked to him. He was in the hospital, and we recorded it, and that recording completely has disappeared. I cannot find that recording anywhere. And I swear to you,
Wow, I remember all of it, all of it.
yeah. And he called, and he was just so, you can talk about it, Sharon, when Lenny called on the phone.
Well, he was excited. He
Yeah,
was excited about just being home and out of the seeming body. He knew he had a knowing. The knowing in him was alive, I think. And the way he was telling all the doctors he can't wait, they were all shocked, right? Isn't that the kind of impression? Because
yeah,
again, I think I talked to his sister. I don't know. I was pretty much Sharon and I were having a problem with him. It was early on in the path, and I cried about him dying. I even though I might cry for everyone dying because that's just a body response, but he really, really, really was living it. Like he was. I remember calling Dove, so upset that he was going to die, and he said he's seasoned, he'll be okay.
yeah.
So yeah, I
And
do remember all of it.
he was having a blast. He was
He was
ready
having a
to get
blast.
out of here. And it was just so joyful to hear him talking. And then like that in the middle of the night, like 3 o'clock in the morning, uh, I guess they went in his room and he was gone. So yeah.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? It's an amazing story because we saw it, like we lived it. A lot of people, you can tell them and they won't believe it, but he was actually excited, and it wasn't because he felt miserable about life. He really didn't. He was always happy. When I talked to him, he'd get angry and want people to listen to him, but he especially me, Sharon, are you listening?
Uh,
But
is anybody
you know,
listening? What did I
and at
just
the
what
time,
did
he
I
wanted, he knew I was single, so he was going to come and meet me. I said, no, 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 we would be very bad together because I had the same kind of shtick means stuff that he had, So yeah, so we were just good friends.
That's funny. Yeah, I met up with Lenny when we went to out to see Ken in Temecula.
Oh,
Lenny
right,
was there.
right.
Yeah, and what a amazing that was. So I have some great pictures of him uh, from that. So he fell in love with Aussie Marie. That's for sure.
I have never met her, but boy, I love her too. She used
yeah.
to help me in a way that
Oh,
I was really struggling with John, that. So it was kind of interesting how because she was getting it very early on, but I think she was also in it for a lot longer too, maybe. I don't know.
oh yeah, because she used to go see Ken when he was in Roscoe.
Yeah, yeah,
She
yeah.
was in
She
she
did.
was in New York, and that was she would go and see Marianne Williamson, and
That's yeah.
she would go and she'd gone several times to see Marianne, and then she got the book Course of Miracles, and she started reading the book, and she's like, there's something deeper here that I'm not getting. And she realized that there was a lot more to the course than what she was doing from Marianne. And
Well,
so
yeah, Marianne seems to, how we're all being lived. Marianne seems to be being lived to help in the world.
Yeah.
Because if anyone knows the course, she does know, but she's not like she said at John's. She's a great teacher. I mean, she was my beginning, and she had classes on it, and she's the one who told me to get the course.
Yeah.
But she feeds a lot into the story here, and I think that's because Divine's using her to do that.
Right, exactly. And it's nothing about Marianne, but Aussie knew that that was not all there was. And so she said something about it. And someone said, oh, you should go see Ken Wapnick. And so I have that interview that I did with her that is so beautiful. I'll play that sometime.
Who, Marianne?
No, Aussie.
I'd love to hear. Why does she doesn't want to come on here, I guess,
She's
as a
not
guest?
doing anything really anymore. I mean, she's not actively that I know of anyway. She's not with our disappearance
Yeah.
group anymore anyway. So anyway, but that's how it was with Lenny.
Yeah.
Lenny was he was full of life. And
Because a lot of remember Teddy when it came to Lenny. Oh, that was
oh
also
my
funny.
God, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. It was such entertainment back in those days. But
It really was. Like I was so new that all I wanted, I never got involved in that. And like you would be more involved than me. I just listened. That was my whole thing. And
yeah,
I find myself doing that more now too. Like your personality is so temporary. And I had two, I'm an extrovert and an introvert. You wouldn't think I was an introvert, but if you saw me in other groups, you would see. You know how the ego just goes. So if I follow guidance, usually I hear, be silent.
yeah.
Just listen. Listen, learn, and do. So,
Exactly. Well,
yes.
I think a lot
Yeah.
of people are different in other groups. I think this group is different because uh, people feel comfortable to open up and say things that,
Right. We don't feel well, yeah, I have literally not been able to do that in any other group.
yeah,
No. No, no. Because I was scared of it, the ego in me didn't want to like that one of the thoughts, who was it that said something about it was my friend Michelle. She's in Awakening Together and she did something on people pleasing. I found it so helpful and she didn't think so. And that was Sunday. Did you go Sunday?
I did. But no, I wasn't. I think I was doing something. I played it here, but I was getting ready because of my
Oh,
daughter.
okay. 'Cause I was in Philadelphia, so I listened to it, and like, 'cause she's a good friend of mine. I met her with Helen, and I actually met her in Awakening Together. But so, what I was going to say is that I think the hardest thing about the process is we listen to the ego telling us we're not getting it, because that's what it does all the time anyway. So once you realize that the mind doesn't know, even though it says it over and over, the mind doesn't know what you are. There's a point where it just stops and you're like, oh, I don't want to feed this ridiculous thing. Because it is playing in the mud. It is. You're playing with dirt. Because there's not one thing in this world. I love when Dove says, if you want anything in this world, you will suffer. Because it's
Yeah.
true. Jesus says it. Now, I still have some things, like I'm still in the mother thing, but not quite as bad. Like if my kids get mad at me now, like Andrew yelled at me, I don't even like hear it. Like it's almost like who cares? He's talking to himself. And then if I'm with Jonathan in any way, I take things more like the same way all of us are doing now, where it's just as it comes rather than to know what you're going to say. And usually it's light and airy and kind, you know. And I feel like, honest to God, we won the lottery to have a process like this.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. This is the greatest gift ever.
You know
Honestly.
what's painful when you think you're not going to get it? And that's a lot of what I felt in one of the groups I was in, because it was like, and I'm not mentioning the group so much as the guidance. Like that guidance thing is not necessarily helpful in a group because nobody hears anything but the ego. Because somebody would say, well, she sounds like she's guidance, but she doesn't. Like, do you really think spirit would say that? No, it's
Really,
all
there's no comparison in that.
right. So
That's
yeah, so there's just there's places where it tested my ego's patience, where finally the ego gave up on and said, well, it was when you opened this up. I would have stayed because I never left Gather, not ever. I was with Dove even when I was with Helen Hamilton. I wasn't leaving. I guess the truth of who I am didn't move, in
yeah.
that way.
Yeah, and you know, I never regretted having switched over and allowed that switch over to happen with Awakening Together because, you know, it was a part of my path too.
That's right. It was the devastation of being separate. That's all you were feeling. The separation, it was rejection. It was,
Yeah,
it was all like, just think about that. Like, if you're looking at, because it's all coming from within, and we want so badly for the world to have done this to us because of the guilt. We just feel, and I shouldn't only speak for myself. I still have guilt, obviously. So I can see how it works in you and how distracting. Like, let's face it, all sickness is the ego because you can die. So, you know,
yeah, yeah.
and you're a mind, you're not even a body. So it's
Right.
just so
And their
ridiculous.
thoughts. That's the thing that's so crazy to me. You know, that's what when Glenn mentioned that last night about in the course of love, there's a section about the origin of thought or thoughts. I'm going to go and read that because I'm real interested to hear what her voice said to her about it.
I was going to say, do you want to do this ever on a Tuesday, like, or on maybe a Thursday, have a group of, because Thursday nights haven't been that easy for me to get to the class and you're not taping it.
I'm taping it. I'm just not posting it.
Oh, can you send them to me then? Because
Yeah,
I'll be there sometimes. I mean, I'll probably be there tomorrow, but sometimes I can't.
yeah.
And what I think is important. This book, A Course of Love, I have it on Audible too, and I listen. It just goes on, reiterating what we know, but it brings us to a place where it's really concentrating on the heart, not the mind anymore.
Right. It's moving us actually, and I recognize that after I was so resistant to it and it
Yeah.
really had to ask the Holy Spirit, help me see this, please help me. And you know, I realized that the reason I was being resistant to it was because I thought I was being loyal to the course. And you know, that's not how it works. We are constantly being given more and more and more. And yes, if you got the course, you would get this for sure. But
Mhm.
once you get the course, then you know, how do you move through the world? And that's what the course of love is more about, moving through the world
Well,
in
that's something that I definitely want to do. I'm just wondering, you think we should do a group in the afternoon, or I could do it like on a Thursday and maybe some. See, I know Karen wants to stay strictly course, and you know what? That works too. You don't need this. You don't need the other's teachings, but there's something about the fact that it concentrates on the heart that I feel Spirit is saying, do this. Oh, there's Lindy. Sure. Okay, Lindy,
Go
you
ahead, Lindy.
talk to
And
me.
Bob, yeah, we'll still be here. We're here for another hour after this. So
Hour
uh
and hour and 20 minutes. Yeah.
yeah, so we'll still be here. Go
Oh,
ahead.
good. Hi, okay, I got a question. I was listening to some of the comments about guilt, and I kept trying to think about how when the last time I felt guilt. And then I remembered, and it's real spiritual for me. And I don't know, I don't want to I like this conversation, the power of thought, because my thoughts are all I don't know where they're at when it comes to this. But look, here's where I'm feeling guilty because I go there every now and then. I'm constantly repenting, asking God to forgive me because I won't wait on my husband. I'll be trying somebody. Listen, let me see if I can say this correctly. Um, for a long time, I kept myself celibate, waiting on my husband. Then I started getting kind of lonely up in here. And I said, well, maybe this ain't the right way to do this. I said, waiting, that might not get me nowhere. Because that's the thought that has been planted in my mind to, it's like a seed. And it grew and it grew. And I just wouldn't deviate from that. So recently, um, I met a Muslim man and I liked him. And I allowed him to make love to me. And he said I was his wife and da 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 da, so I was going along with it. but I took on a lot of guilt because I guess I wasn't his flavor because he's no longer in my life. And the thought comes from the Torah that I am tied to and I'm dedicated to. So it says something like this: when a man comes inside of a woman, he knows her now. In the sight of God, that's his wife. So I said, well, if you don't want me no more, write me a writ of divorce, because that's our law. These are my thoughts. And then, when you try it again and you go, what are you doing? You committing adultery here. These are the thoughts that are flowing around in my mind and making me feel guilty towards the Creator for not waiting on my husband. Do that make any sense what I'm saying to y'all?
No sense whatsoever. None. Because
Well, these are the thoughts, y'all.
have to do
And
with
I keep saying, Linda, what are you feeling? You so guilty and you don't even know what you're guilty about, except for the thoughts that you have from the Torah. And I just don't know, y'all. Help me out here. Let me hear what you got to say about these thoughts.
Okay.
And I feel guilty too. I really do, y'all.
Okay.
That I'm displeasing the Most High by not waiting. Well, I
Like,
wasn't waiting. Now I'm gonna wait, but I wasn't waiting before.
Okay, let me ask you this. Why do you think God cares about that? What
I
gave you
don't
the
know.
idea that God cared about
Good
that?
point. Good point. Because you're not even that person. The person's a thought. So whatever you did was fine. There's no guilt. You're not even, you're not the, right? Maybe I should suggest Keith Kavanaugh, because he will tell you point blank, you can't be, Lindy, we couldn't be thought. So I was in a group this very early this morning, and it was all like there's a man in the group that has so many issues about things that he's done, and I just stay quiet because I'm not getting any kind of nudge to say any more. But at the same time, I feel like when we really get, how could we be a thought? So whatever you did was okay, because I mean, if you killed somebody, it's not going to affect who you really are, but you will go to jail. There are things that you can't do here because if you kill something, we all know that. But the other things that bring us pleasure and all, I don't know. I just think that it's important to try to let this self that it doesn't really exist go. And I'll tell you, I have had
I think
a
I
challenge.
understand. I think I'm understanding what you're saying here because it's a little confusing to me, but I'm trying to digest it. Because I
Well,
really
you're
do
not
like.
the ego, because how could you be? How could you be the ego when the ego is just ephemeral, meaning it's a dream? It doesn't have any tangible. It's intangible. It's the
Or
Tao.
the body.
Well, it's not the Tao. The Tao's what we are. But
Or the ego or the body. Yeah, let's not even go into the ego. Let's talk about thinking that you're the body.
oh,
Right,
right.
because
That's
that's
even
where I'm
better.
feeling the guilt
That's
from,
great.
what I did with my body, right?
Right.
And
Which
then you say,
Perfect.
then you say we not a body. So when I try to go there and say, well, Linda, now just think about some of the teachings that ACIM is teaching, because this guilt thing is gonna cripple you.
right. And honestly, if you think that's the only thing you're feeling guilty about, you're going to be shocked as shit when you start really looking, because you're going to realize that you're feeling guilty because of something that happened with your kids, something that you said, something that somebody. You're going to start seeing guilt in every little thought and action that you do, because that's what motivates us in this world. We're motivated by guilt, and it may seem like, oh no, I'm just, you know, uh, whatever. Tell me one thing that you're disappointed in yourself about, besides, getting with a man. Well, that's a given. But but God doesn't think that way. God says was there love, because all expressions of love are maximal. So if
Wow.
there was any love involved in that, you better believe God was right there all the whole time. And God was,
And I did love him. I wanted to see his success too. I really did.
and you still do. And that's the thing that's
And I
beautiful.
still do. Do you right about that? I still want to see that young man's success. You right.
Exactly. So love doesn't die just because you're not in the physical presence of another person. But love doesn't
Mm,
begin because you are in the physical presence of another person.
I
Love
see.
is and always has been and always will be. So what you're experiencing here is either love or a lack of love. And so
Mm,
if you're experiencing a lack of love, then that is the thing that you can look at and say, I'm feeling guilty because I'm experiencing a lack of love.
I
And
see.
and whatever it is, I'm
Okay.
mad at my sister did this to me. I'm unhappy about the government. I'm afraid of prices going up. I'm worried about the economy. I'm worried about starving children. Worried about the children in Gaza. I'm all of those things are things that if you think about them, you're going to feel guilty because you're going to recognize that somehow or the other you're responsible for the world that you see, even if you can't do anything about it. And that's the thing that Jesus is telling us and that we're hearing from A Course in Miracles. The thing that you can do about it is the only thing that can be done about it. And that's to change your mind about it. So once you start looking at the real, because I know a lot of Course in Miracles students say, I don't feel guilty about anything. Well, then why do you give money every week, every month to save the children? Why do you go out and vote? Why do you do any of the things that you do? Because you think that if you didn't, bad things are happening. And the basis of that is guilt, a belief that somehow you're responsible and you have to do something. So, guilt is not a simple subject. Guilt is
And
is
you
a
want to hear something else really funny?
sure.
I asked him, I said, listen, write me a writ of divorce just in case I want to find me somebody else. And
Uh-huh.
he wouldn't write it. So I said, what are you doing? Why won't you give it to me so just someone else can come along and maybe love me and be with me? I mean, I couldn't believe what I was. It was just unbelievable that. And so now I'm feeling like he holding the coochie hostage. Y'all excuse that French.
How funny. Well, no, for a Muslim, he's a Muslim.
Yeah, he's
For
a
a Muslim,
Muslim.
all you have to do is say, I divorce thee, I divorce thee, I divorce thee. Say, I divorce thee 3 times and you're divorced.
Okay.
That's it.
All right, love. Thank you.
Yeah,
Because I just want to, because I actually feel like that's what he did, But anyway, but thank you. That makes sense to me. Really.
yeah. I mean, Muslim divorce is the easiest thing in the world. And of course, that's, how seriously they take marriage, obviously. But at least we have to go through some legal thing. And if there is a legal thing, like if you're in Colorado and you use that person's last name or you file taxes with them, you're legally married and you do have to get a divorce. But uh, that's only in some places. That's not everywhere. So anyhow, um, let's see. Let's continue reading. Do you want to read? Anybody want to read from the next morning?
I'll read. We're the next morning.
The next morning.
The next morning, while serving Bill's breakfast, Judy commented about its being the 4th of July, and he said, yes, it's my Independence Day. She asked if he still felt free, and he reiterated, yes, I'm so flexible. He and Whit had talked about the meaning of flexible as a term from the PAS, flexibility, not of the body, but of the personality. He had gone from being restricted, reserved, and inflexible to expansive, flowing, and inclusive. He offered his private conviction to Whit that the pause was still the most powerful and advanced psychological tool for describing human behavior, and that only a few people really understood it. Judy's chronicles continued. Bill knew I was having a large group over for the holidays. The table was all set, and I had the refrigerator full of food. God, is that fun? Can you just picture yourself there? um, After breakfast, I decided, however, that I had to go to the market and get some more chicken. Bill insisted I already had enough, but I said, yes, but I'm a Jewish mother and have to have extra. He then announced that he was going for a walk, as it was his daily custom, would meet me at the supermarket and then drive home with me. Since I didn't have time to shop, needing to tend to the barbecue and other last minute details, I must have responded with a funny look. He apparently noticed that because he said, "Don't worry, dear, if I'm not there when you're ready to leave, go home without me." I put my arms around him, hugged him real tight, and said, "Bill, I'm never going home without you," thinking only from the coarse frame of reference of our returning home together. He seemed perfectly fine and didn't connect his comment with any feeling of foreboding, certainly nothing like death. He just patted me on the head. Bill walked out the door to take his stroll while I went downstairs, collected my shopping list, and maybe 5 minutes later got in the car and drove a few feet. And there was Bill lying on the ground, the paramedics already there. My next door neighbor, a surgeon, God bless him, had been clipping his bushes in the front yard. He saw Bill go down, ran to his car maybe 3 yards away, grabbed his medical kit, called the paramedics, and in seconds was by his side. The whole idea of Bill dying right then and there, my mind raced thinking about his being alone. All that one thinks when something like that happens. If I had come out 3 minutes earlier, could I have saved him? But the doctors were in but the doc but the doctors were in total control, and I never forget his kindness. He wanted to know that what medicines he might have been on, so I ran around the house, brought out his shaving kit, and he started going through it while still holding Bill. The paramedics wanted to give him oxygen, but the doctor said he was already gone, dead before his head hit the road. And isn't that just the way to dissolve? It is. It's a great way to dissolve. I think I said this to you guys. Cliff's sister's son died like 2 weeks ago, and he was only 63, 62 or 63. And he died in the same way Bill did. He was walking out to get a water from his car, and he just fell and he was dead. That is like a really, really because I don't think any of us are afraid to die. I think the suffering is what scares the mind, even though only the ego can suffer, because we're not that. But it's just so interesting, because I think I wonder if Robert's still here, because he said he was going to eat breakfast, and I don't know if he was leaving. I guess he's here, but he's going to eat right now. But anyway, I mean, the skeptic in this mind had to read Journey Without Distance 3 times to really understand that this was real. But even though I was told that this was a dream, I still didn't. There's so much the obstacles are so light. They're all empty, but they're just empty thought. But the belief in them and the power of our mind will do it. So that's where we're at. Anyway, he went on. Bill walked out the door to take his stroll. And did I read this? Yeah, no, I didn't. Bill walked out
Yeah,
the
you're
door.
up to where the doctor, that there was a lot of blood on the ground. There was considerable blood because he hit the ground so hard.
Oh, okay.
But the doctor thought the cause of death was his heart blowing out. That is, of course, is not a medical term, but it did describe the situation. And you want me to continue reading?
Yeah, because my throat is I keep coughing. I don't know why.
So yeah, so he just walked out of his body, basically, is what happened. And I told you about Mr. Sutton when I was 12 years old. I'm walking down the stairs and he just walked out of his body, and his body just collapsed on the floor. And there he was walking away. And I expect that Bill was standing there watching them as they were trying to figure out what to do. But of course, he was, he just continued on. um, the autopsy later confirmed that part of Bill's heart, oh, and it's 9:30 already, had indeed exploded, and that he had left suddenly and painlessly. Uh, and let's see how much more of this here. All right, I think I'm going to just stop it here because this, and of course it will not let me. I don't know why this book won't let me make a bookmark. It's crazy. It cracks me up. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and shut down